Job Insights is a podcast that is helping you find careers and gainful employment through innovations and opportunities. And you can find the Job Insights podcast on blindabilities.com, part of the Blind Abilities Network. And as part of the Job Insights podcast, we will be bringing you the Job Insights Extras, consisting of interviews, demonstrations, and news surrounding employment, careers, and jobs, with hosts Serina, Gilbert, and myself, Jeff Thompson. And you can contact us by email at jobinsights@blindabilities.com. Leave us some feedback or suggest some topics that we cover on Twitter at Job Insights VIP.
Everyone just turned and ran as we heard this rumble that became this deafening roar in like about a half a second, which was Tower 2 collapsing about 100 yards away from our position. The airplane hit 18 floors above us on the other side of the building. We had no clue what had happened.
Those are the words of Michael Hingson. He's the author of Thunderdog, a book about 9/11, where on September 11th, 2001, a terroristic attack took down the World Trade Center towers. Michael happened to be in one of the towers and led a group of people, along with his guide dog, Roselyn, to safety. We did an entire podcast on this topic, and we put a link in the show notes where you can find it on Blind Abilities. Once again, we caught up with Michael Hingson and asked him the question about transition-age students, what advice he would have for someone transitioning from high school to college to the workplace. Michael was so kind to share with us some advice and some of his experiences from his college days as well. So we hope you enjoy this Job Insights Extra.
We have some unique advantages now, and we have some real serious problems now compared to when I went to college. For high school kids going on, learn all that you can. Learn to know yourself. Learn skills.
And now, here's Michael Hingson.
I think that college is an adventure. I think that becoming more independent, as most people will if you go to college and leave home to go to college, live on campus or in an apartment, but typically on campus, maybe not too far away from home, maybe a long way from home. But that's an adventure, and accept it and embrace it as an adventure first and foremost. Live every life moment to the best that you can. Live to the fullest, because you won't have that opportunity again. Everything that you do will be a memory, but it will also be a learning experience for you. I know that when I went to college, went to the University of California at Irvine, which was 100 miles away from where I grew up. I lived on campus for 3 years. And I remember a lot of what I did on campus because I just considered it a great adventure. We have some unique advantages now, and we have some real serious problems now compared to when I went to college. The advantages are there's a lot of technology. There are a lot more books available. And again, if people aren't proficient in Braille, they ought to get proficient in Braille. But we have some disadvantages. Most colleges have an office for disabled students, and they have these people who are hired to basically do everything for us. They hire our readers. We don't get to do that like we used to, which means that we lose the opportunity to develop a skill that will help us in the workforce. The skill is finding readers that work for us, not that work on the terms of the Office for Disabled Students. And likewise, if we don't do well with them, we can fire them. We don't have that option nearly as much as we used to. So students need to use college to learn that independence and to learn those skills that will help them in whatever else they do in life. Braille is important because without the ability to truly read and write, people will not function well in college, much less when they leave college. They will not have the skills that they need to be able to compose good, articulate, relevant sentences. They won't spell as well. And they just plain won't have had the opportunity that they really should get. So I think it's important that students in high school take advantage of the things that are offered and learn to be self-reliant. That doesn't mean you don't learn to ask for help, but learn to be self-reliant. I spent time at the World Trade Center learning where everything was. I walked around with a cane. I worked after a while to get lost, because by getting lost, I obviously found someplace I didn't know before. And it got to the point where I couldn't get lost in the World Trade Center. And as I love to tell people, you could drug me and knock me out, and I wake up and you've put me somewhere and I'll know where I am within just a few seconds because I knew the complex that well. I did that in part because I kept thinking, what am I going to do if there's an emergency and how am I going to get out? As the Mid-Atlantic Region sales manager for my company, that is, as the leader of that office, I had to be responsible for the people in the office, which means I had to know what to do in order to get them to do what needed to be done and what they had to do. I could not have done that if I didn't take the time to learn to be self-reliant and to learn to do whatever I needed to do in any circumstance that I could. So for me, every day I went into the World Trade Center, I almost subconsciously thought, what am I going to do if there's an emergency today? Well, one day I guess I made it happen, and suddenly an emergency did occur. But I knew what to do, and that's why I didn't really panic. People have said to me, well, you were so calm. I was, because I knew what to do. And I also know myself well enough that if something different had happened and suddenly it was a real crisis situation, well, it was when Tower 2 was collapsing, I could deal with it, or I couldn't, Either we were going to survive or we weren't. But I knew that I could deal with whatever situation there was to the best of my ability and stay focused. So high school kids need to learn that. They need to spend that time, especially blind kids. I don't mean totally blind, but I mean blind with eyesight, but kids just who don't see well enough to function as a fully sighted person. And I think that's the definition of blindness. You're blind when your eyesight is diminished to the point where you can't see well enough to function as a sighted person, and you have to use alternative techniques. That includes Braille. And I keep emphasizing that because I think it's so important for people. So for high school kids going on, learn all that you can. Learn to know yourself. Learn skills. Then use them in college. When you go to college, don't learn how to just get from your dorm to the library. Learn how to get around the campus. Learn how to go from any point A to any point B. What I did after a while, having learned that other kids did it on campus, was I learned where all the shortcuts were. That is, through the steam tunnels that went underground and that you weren't supposed to use. But hey, we all did, because it cut the time to get from one side of the campus to the other by half. So we did it. And I learned how to do that as well as anyone else because I wanted to have those same opportunities. I didn't know just how to get from my dorm to computer science or physical sciences or whatever. I learned where every building was so that I could go wherever, depending on what kind of class I had. I learned to make friends with faculty. I never said Dan, but I knew Chancellor Dan Aldrich, and I'd spent time in his office a couple times because he wanted to get to know me, and I wanted to certainly get to know him to just understand him and hopefully educate him a little bit more about me being blind. My academic advisor was the Dean of Physical Sciences, Fred Reines, who was the discoverer of the subatomic particle, the neutrino. He won a Nobel Prize for it. And he was the one that encouraged me to do that. He encouraged me to get to know the administrative staff. He said, there will be times that they can assist you and they may ask you things, but they'll never do it if you guys don't know each other. And I think that was an important lesson too. So again, there's a lot to do when you get to be a blind college student, but it's worth doing all of that to make the experience better and to make sure that you have all the power and all the skills behind you that you need.
Michael, do you have any favorite quotes that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think in Thunderdog, especially, one of my favorite quotes, and the one I use most often, is don't let your sight get in the way of your vision. And I try to use that with sighted people a lot who talk about blindness and all that. And they say, well, but how can you do that? Well, I'm doing it. Don't let your sight get in the way of your vision, right? And people tell me, well, you don't have any vision. And I say, no, I don't see, but I have lots of vision. Now, I'm certainly creating a play on words, but still it's true. We often don't see beyond our eyeballs. And bottom line is that we have as much vision as the next group of people if given the opportunity to use it. And again, eyesight isn't what should hold us back. So that's one of my favorite quotes. Another one, and again, I use it in Thunderdog, is because it's true with Roselyn, and it was true of others on September 11th, 2001. Sometimes being a hero is just doing your job. And, I was just doing my job. People say you're a hero, and if they do, they do. But I was just doing what I needed to do, and I was helping people get out, and I got out, and that's what we should do. But if it helps people to think that, and if it will help them think more positively about what we can all do, then it's a worthwhile thing.
We've been speaking to Michael Hingson, #1 bookseller, author of Thunderdog, inspirational speaker, advocate, and you can follow Michael on his website at michaelhingson.com and on Twitter at mhingson, that's MHINGSON on Twitter. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Job Insights Extra. And you can find all the Job Insights podcasts and the Job Insights Extras on Blind Abilities. You can find us on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at Blind Abilities, and follow Job Insights on Twitter at Job Insights VIP. Download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. Enable the Alexa skill just by saying, "Enable Blind Abilities." Once again, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed. And until next time, bye-bye. And thank you, Chi Chow, for the beautiful music. And you can follow Chi Chow on Twitter at El Chi Chow.
When we share
what we see through each other's eyes,
we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the realities
of blind abilities.
The realities of blind abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at Blind Abilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blind Abilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.